Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go over my daily plan, how I came up with it, as well as the live commentary I provided through StockTwits. If you don't already follow me there, it's ChocolateLabTrading, and I will leave a link in the description. I provide, again, the daily plans before open and usually the morning session of my live commentary. So let's see how everything played out. And I wrote in how I was coming into the office later today because we had Jerome Powell speaking at 9:10. So to create a daily plan, I kind of wanted to see what was going on in regards to price action then. So at 9 a.m., he was supposed to speak at 9:10, I believe it was. I wrote this, not a surprising overnight profile considering the news coming up. Pretty happy bell curve. Can anyone tell me what that signifies? I have discussed in great detail in videos, and I'll answer it today. So let's make that picture bigger. And of course, you see the overnight sessions volume, just as I said, bell curve with value area low, value area high. And this was just consolidating on the overnight session on this little volume pocket we established before yesterday's close up here. So something to pay attention to before I move on to the daily plan, because that's next. Our buy zone today was 39.40 to 39.45, and reasoning I've been talking about the past few days, we've built balance in this area. Balance, you see a whole bunch of overlapping value areas. That's balance. The market is happy to trade from here. You see a poor low. What this is called is a poor low. We got single prints as a low. Running all the stops of everyone who was accumulating here, and that's why we are now going to test, or did test, the upper zone and blew through it. We left some single prints here on the rip up yesterday, as you could see, and we filled that right before open, I believe it was today. So, but to the point, the overlapping value area highs over here were right below 39.40, and since we ripped over it, I knew that if we were going to come down to it, bulls would want to hold that area as it's crucial, or else after running stops on the bottom, running stops on top, we were likely to find a new area of market participation. So, moving on, we have the daily plan. And I again, oh, that looks pretty good. So it's cautious buy zone down here, and you see I don't have the 940 to 45 highlighted, but I'll get to that in 1 second. Cautious sell zone, this actually ended up being the high of day. Provided at this point, it's 310, I think 3 or 4 different sell opportunities, the smallest one being 10 points, and the highest was 50, I believe. And these were areas that I was also looking if we went higher. So I did forget this. I added at 9:33 that could be a potential buy zone. I also said this. I posted a picture of the 4-hour chart with the footprint, and I said we now have a buying imbalance where there was a previous selling imbalance. Was someone trapped, covering to get out as close as possible to their break even? What do I mean? As I showed on the TPO, we had a single prints left, and those single prints were from these sellers yesterday, towards yesterday's not close, but during yesterday's cash session. Sellers were piling in here. You could see with the selling imbalance, and they got popped. When they get popped, you see how thin this volume is here compared to below it. That is just shorts, all these shorts over here, tripping over each other trying to cover their positions, and that what causes a fast movement up, and that's what held during the overnight session. And that was a filling of single prints that happened this morning, I mentioned just before. So you move on here, see that print on the bottom. Buyers trying to build out volume here, need to keep an eye on the delta. So this was me talking about the tape at the lows. You could see a very small print at the bottom with a buying imbalance. You have 7,000 contracts bought over 145. A huge imbalance, small numbers on the bottom, talking about exhaustion. And so what we were going to see here, and what did end up happening, was we know buyers are positioned here, sellers are positioned here. Now this is going to ping pong back and forth. The volume nodes are going to build out, and these sellers are going to try to move down on the tape. They'll try to get a selling imbalance here, here if they can, and reverse for the buyers. Now what happens if price action comes above these sellers, say to the selling imbalance, that means everyone who was selling right here, they are underwater, they need to cover the positions, and since that's such a large volume node, that's going to be a lot of volume, lots of covering, and result in a squeeze. That's how squeezes happen. And this was also at the bottom. So now at this point, we were seeing a much better defined B profile. And as I've mentioned before, B profiles tend to be accumulation. Of course, speaking strictly with context, this was a level we were looking to buy, so we can assume this is absorption and not a short covering. Buying balances were getting bigger, as you saw. Sellers defended, then we're coming back down and then building out this B before running all the short sellers, the low slammers. Sellers are low slamming, will be fuel for the squeeze if they cannot overwhelm the buying. So I was saying this again in real time, literally 9:40, and you see the sellers, they're trying to move down, they have a huge volume node, but you see this delta. Every time we came into the buying imbalance, you saw the buyers adding to their position. Now, if you're unfamiliar with all the stuff that I'm talking about, I came out with a video just a few hours ago with a very basic overview of how to read these charts and how to interpret them, so you kind of can follow along much better. And 9:43, sellers popped, and that was 20 points right off the squeeze from our buy zone. You see all these sellers down here. As I said, once price comes up here, all these guys, their positions are underwater, they're forced to cover. Now, this will be the next zone that sellers are desperate to either get back into the positions or just load this volume node. If not, we're going to keep on squeezing. And I said thin volume nodes on the way up, low slamming shorts got popped. Remember what I said that means? And I just actually went over it in this video. Low volume nodes on the way up, once you have a selling imbalance, or low volume, or low volume nodes to the downside after high volume nodes here. These low volume nodes, if we're moving down, these low volume nodes would be buyers being stopped out. And the same thing as we see right here, so we could get a better visual of it. These low volume nodes after high volume shelves over here, these are people getting stopped out. I hope that makes sense. And I said, look at the 30-minute chart. Big B profile, exactly what I'm pointing out now. Those previous charts I was showing you was the 4-hour chart. So even on a smaller time frame, you could clearly see the exhaustion at the bottom. Sellers trying, this is their line in the sand, and as soon as that gets popped, off to the races. Okay, I said sellers got a zero print up here. Now they need to build out these volume nodes. If they can't, there'll be the next leg up. So something to pay attention to. Look at the numbers of these profiles compared to these. They're similar, but these are bigger. There's much more people trapped underwater here. So sellers are going to have to build, maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, 40% more at least amount of contracts to the top side to at least see a retravel and fix the structure. So if you're going to look on a TPO chart, all these thin volume nodes most likely ended up as single prints. And something I've spoken about before in other videos is market auction theory and how price likes to travel into single prints like that and fix structure. So I said, look at these nodes after sellers got popped. They're desperate. This is the last chance. So this is back to the 4-hour, and this is back to where sellers were active above this. Again, they're pretty much line in the sand before continuing upwards. And then I actually went to a smaller time frame. So we had this pop, and this ended up being our single print that I showed on the 30-minute. And then what this is, through the footprint, you can see this is a stop run. So let me actually clean this up. What I circled here was all these sellers here. People are trying to sell this cloud. I believe this is like the 50 exponential moving average and another one to make a cloud. And traders are trying to sell it. And what happens? We get a pop. This is a stop run. This is exactly what a stop run looks on the tape. Selling imbalance, small volume nodes, and then big volume nodes. What that is the um, buying climax of the shorts. Next candle opens, zero bid, just drop down. And then I pointed out right here, below this volume, this is going to be the line in the sand for the bulls. Either they hold it right here after these stops get ran, or it's going to continue downwards. And exactly what happened, we came down here, single prints on the bottom of both of these, exhaustion to the sell side. We have double buying imbalances, and then you actually see the bid moving up. Sellers trying desperately to sell the 5-minute 9 EMA, and as you could see through the thin volume nodes, they get popped. Okay, so now we open the next 4-hour session, and you can see where sellers active last time. Important to note, and pretty telling, where this 4-hour candle closed, it closed above all the volume to the downside. That is a lot of volume underwater. Nonetheless, on the next 4-hour open, we got a dip, bit of exhaustion, not extreme, but with a buying imbalance. And as we're coming up, the same sellers from the last 4-hour candle were trying to defend their positions, add to it, and try to see some continuation downwards. So I said if they could build enough volume, then we could see a stop of momentum to the upside and start to go down to the downside. And something you learn to see on the tape, and you become accustomed to how much volume is a lot, how much needs to be accumulated or absorbed before reversals. And then I went back, this is a 5-minute chart, and I said, see these wicks? What these wicks are is market makers running the book to either side. As you can see, the delta very clear, right up top, blue on the bottom. They ran it up, ran all the short stops, ran it down, ran all the buyer stops. And what this means is a movement, as I said. See those ugly wicks? This is going to choose a side soon. That was at 10:14. And here I am highlighting on the 4-hour, kind of insinuating how I think this will probably go up, I believe, if I remember correctly. We get a double buying imbalance, lots of buying compared to the selling up top. Buyers got a single print, and yeah, so we did rip up right after. This is, as you can see, back to a 30-minute chart, and those are just little signs on the footprint that you could take, combining your different time frames to help with your bias, knowing these stop runs. Even though they're running stops to the upside and the downside, they're always going to do that. But when we're focused on smaller time frames, a lot of the time, we may shift our bias, but larger time frames on the footprint definitely help a lot. Okay, so sellers got smoked. We see this huge pop, thin volume compared to down here. That was all those people being stopped. And you can see here it's like a 15-point pop or something like that. See how only 2 contracts were transacted at the bottom of this 30-minute candle. Oh, I accidentally posted a 4-hour chart, not a 30-minute. That's funny. Anyway, what I was trying to say, on this 30-minute candle over here, only 2 contracts were transacted at the bottom of the footprint. What does that mean? Exhaustion to the downside. We're going up, and sure enough, we did. And I said all this volume down here is underwater now. We're looking at the 4-hour chart again. And I said we're going to continue at least until this first sell zone. And again, that ended up just over the sell zone being the high of day. And then I took a little break after the opening session, asking if people would like to subscribe. 88% of people who watch my videos do not subscribe, so it would mean a lot if you did. But regardless. And right after, we touched the initial selling zone to the tick, literally, and we get a 0 print on top. So we have a 0 print, we have P-shaped distribution, which, as I say, is sellers on top, double selling imbalance. And what happens once we pull under the bottom of the P? All this volume who's buying at the top, people chasing to buy the break of high day maybe, who are all being sold into but don't know it. Once we pull under the P, they're underwater, and that is fuel to the downside. Yep, I pretty much said that there. And this was eventually, we got the pullback and then came back came over the sell zone a little bit. We got a zero print on the 4-hour, signaling exhaustion. Huge selling balance, 33 contracts at 21,000. I mean, huge. That's complete exhaustion. And you could see a beautiful, beautiful P-shaped distribution. These volume nodes are huge compared to these. So pull under here. As you'll see, I'm going to say, this is going to be the next line in sand for the bulls. If they can't defend here, we're going to see, another 10, 15 point drop to at least there. Oh, I said that here. Did I? Oh, maybe not. I could have sworn I posted. Let me double check. I think I did. Maybe not. I apologize. Okay. I thought I posted to check this volume node because of the high volume here. That's going to be the next place where bulls are going to want to defend. And, oh, I think maybe it's not showing up because I replied to it or quoted it. Whatever. Regardless, we came here and buyers added to the position. So similar as I was talking before, we know buyers are here, sellers are here. We're going to ping pong until one of two things happens. Either there's large hand, market maker, whatever you like to call them, institutions, all noting a position here before the wind down, or this is a whole bunch of people trying to short this area. They'll be blown out, but usually, even if they do get blown out, we'll revisit the lows to fix this thin structure down here. And you had sellers move down on the order flow. See, they're trying to, and if we get above, they're stopping and we ran, we get below, and this is a lot of trapped volume. A lot. And the sell came. So looking at this on a 30-minute chart, once this 30-minute closes in our sell zone, we see that a lot of sellers are underwater. Not only here, but of course in the 10 o'clock and the open 30. A lot of the daily volume is underwater. So what does that tell us? We have to wait on the sidelines. You have to be disciplined enough to wait for this to happen. What is this? This is extension. Sellers are showing their hand, and we then have tons of volume here. And once this 11 o'clock candle closes, a whole bunch of volume trapped underneath, our eyes are open to this next 30-minute open. And as you can see here, the bid is 92, 1400, 1600, when in the candle before it was 17,000, 10,000. So that means all this buying is done. We've exhausted, as pointed out through the highs, and we're going down, and our sell zone is going to work. So there's that way you could play it through the tape, and also you could wait for this 30 minutes to close, and once it closes underneath the volume point of control, the most volume is done right there. Closes below, that means all these people are trapped. Additional confirmation, we close a 30-minute candle below of the sell zone. Next 30 opens, and you see there's no bid, thin volume. A few ways to play it. You could play from the top if you're good on the tape, or wait for backside and take the confirmation. And that delivered 35 points from the sell zone. I don't think I did it from the top. And yeah, this was the sell. You had that huge P shape, and then we came back into these volume nodes, and buyers eventually did do their job to hold it. I haven't looked at the market for about half an hour, so I mean, we could be at zero right now. I don't know, but from the time being, they built out here and then ping-ponged it and kind of set our range for the day. Took him for a walk, and once I came back, I pointed out that this volume node here and here, you could tell that once the low day was in, high day was in, that it was likely to be range bound and do this, start wedging. Why could we tell that on the footprint? Is because once we came down into these high volume areas, buying imbalances appeared, and you could see on the delta that buyers were adding to their position. And when we came back up, same thing with the sellers. Not only that, but the tape is a lot slower. There's not as much volume going in. So that means that we'll either chop there the rest of the day in between these two, or we'll chop through midday, and one of these positions will accumulate or distribute enough contracts that we could get a late day or midday squeeze. So the footprint helps you avoid midday chop or take advantage of scalping these smaller moves. Okay, and this was us chopping back and forth, and buyers were able to set a buying imbalance on this 4 hour right where they had it in the past. And you can see they're adding huge size, and I said, watch out. There could be a sign that the sell zone is negated, and you're going to have to watch this tape because we do have tons of shares sold here, and they're catching up to this one. They have to add enough contracts that they could suppress all this buying, completely exhaust them, and then move down. If not, all these guys selling here are going to get squeezed. So I just sent out a warning, to watch for that. And see, when I quote tweet, or not tweet, but post. Oh. Okay. Oh. Okay, maybe not. I thought I posted again the exhaustion here. But yeah, what did end up happening, we got the pop, we saw the exhaustion on the tape, and it went down. I hope everything I explained makes sense. You can follow me on StockTwits. Again, I post my daily plans before the market open and a live commentary. And I will see you guys tomorrow in the next recap.